Welcome to This Explainer. We're going to investigate one of the world's most intriguing, completely unsolved mysteries. And honestly, the craziest part about it is that it's hiding right out in the open, literally on the public airways. Imagine tuning a standard, everyday shortwave radio and stumbling onto a frequency that isn't playing news or music. Instead, you hear a strange, robotic voice endlessly reading off numbers. It sounds exactly like something straight out of a spy thriller, but I assure you, it is a very real, very well-documented phenomenon. So today we're going to break down the exact nature of these broadcasts to understand what they are, why they exist, and how they function as the ultimate untrackable tool for international espionage.
Right out of the gate, we have to ask the fundamental question that has absolutely baffled amateur radio enthusiasts and intelligence researchers for decades. Who on earth is broadcasting these numbers? You see, anyone with a basic shortwave radio receiver can pick up these transmissions. You really don't need any highly specialized, classified military equipment to hear them. They're just bouncing through the atmosphere, completely accessible to anyone, anywhere in the world who happens to tune into the right frequency at the right time. But despite being entirely public to listen to, operating out in broad daylight, so to speak, the highly classified origin of these eerie robotic broadcasts remains completely unacknowledged by any official source.
Section 1. The Shortwave Radio Mystery. So, researchers refer to these anomalous broadcasts as number stations. And by definition, they're shortwave radio broadcasts that transmit coded messages. Now, they don't all sound exactly the same. The transmissions might use highly synthetic, robotic-sounding voices. Sometimes it's a male voice reading in German, or maybe a female voice reading in Spanish. Other times, the stations might bypass voices entirely and just use rapid-fire Morse code or these really bizarre, repeating digital sounds. And what's particularly fascinating, and honestly kind of unsettling if you're listening late at night, is that a lot of these transmissions actually begin with a specific piece of music or a series of unique tones. It's basically an audio calling card. It alerts the intended listener that a classified message is about to drop, right before the station shifts abruptly into reading long, monotonous sequences of numbers.
Okay, moving on to Section 2. Sending orders to spies.
This elegantly simple three-step process really illustrates the espionage pipeline that became incredibly active back during the Cold War. Intelligence experts firmly believe that these stations were heavily used by spy agencies to send critical survival and operational instructions to their undercover agents embedded deep in hostile foreign countries. First up, the broadcaster transmits the numbers across massive distances using exceptionally powerful shortwave transmitters. Second, the spy simply tunes in at the scheduled time. And guys, this is the absolute genius part of the operation. Receiving a shortwave radio signal leaves absolutely zero digital or physical footprint. Unlike logging into a digital server or answering a phone call, simply listening to a radio receiver cannot be tracked by local counterintelligence. It completely guarantees the agent's safety. Finally, step 3, the spy decrypts the message locally. It's just a completely invisible, untraceable way to receive orders from home.
Section 3. The Unbreakable Secret Code.
Now, you might be thinking, if anyone in the world can hear the numbers being broadcast, the security of the communication has to rely entirely on the code itself, right? Well, enter the one-time pad. This is an encryption system that spy agencies utilize to scramble the messages before they were ever broadcast over the air. The agent out in the field would have a matching physical pad of random keys to actually decipher the specific numbers being read out loud. Often, these were tiny, easily concealable little pieces of paper, printed with microscopic text that could be swallowed or burned at a moment's notice to avoid detection. It seems incredibly primitive compared to modern computer encryption, but it possesses a unique property that top modern intelligence agencies literally still revere to this day. And that property is that when used correctly, a one-time pad is considered mathematically impossible to crack. Just think about what that actually means for an undercover agent whose life is on the line. A foreign government could record the number station broadcast every single day for 50 years. They could put thousands of their absolute best codebreakers and most advanced supercomputers on it. But without that specific, physical one-time pad held by the isolated spy, the sequence of numbers is pure, meaningless static. It's wild, but this is exactly why primitive radio technology, when paired with a physical one-time pad, is ironically vastly superior for sending secret orders than highly trackable, hackable digital communications.
Let's look at Section 4, Famous Frequencies and Stations.
To give you an idea of what this sounds like out in the wild, two of the most famous stations offer a stark, almost theatrical contrast in how they operate. On one hand, you have the Lincolnshire Poacher. This legendary station was famous for opening its broadcast with a surprisingly upbeat, cheerful English folk tune before diving into the numbers. It almost sounded innocent, kind of like a child's music box.
Contrast that directly with a station known as UVB-76, which listeners often call the buzzer. This is a Russian military radio station that just continuously broadcasts a harsh, aggressive, and relentless buzzing sound. The buzzing just grates on, but occasionally it abruptly stops, and a live voice message cuts right through the static. It's a vastly different psychological experience to listen to.
And while UVD-76 is incredibly famous and extremely well documented by amateur listeners and researchers alike, it's worth noting a little nuance here. Experts actually debate whether the buzzer should be classified as a traditional number station in the exact same vein as the Lincolnshire poacher, or if it serves a slightly different military communication or channel marker purpose. But regardless of its exact classification in the intelligence community, it shares the exact same core DNA: strange, coded broadcasts echoing out of the ether for an unknown recipient.
Which brings us to Section 5, an unsolved modern enigma.
The crucial point to remember is that we are not just talking about Cold War history here. Listeners continue to report active number stations transmitting mysterious coded messages around the world today. Because the phenomenon is still ongoing right now, researchers have proposed several credible explanations for what we're actually hearing. These include ongoing secret intelligence communications to deep cover assets, backup military emergency networks designed to survive a nuclear strike, simple government testing of radio equipment, or even deliberate psychological operations designed just to confuse adversaries. What is incredibly important to clarify, however, is that while the broadcasts are deeply mysterious, there is absolutely zero credible evidence pointing to messages from aliens or paranormal sources. Make no mistake, this is a strictly human, highly orchestrated intelligence operation.
And this is perhaps the most chilling fact of all. Despite decades of intense monitoring by civilians, despite thousands of hours of recorded audio, and despite active stations broadcasting right this very second, no major government has ever publicly confirmed operating them. The operators remain completely unacknowledged. They are quite literally ghosts in the machine, utilizing the public airwaves to conduct invisible, high-stakes business while refusing to admit they even exist.
Which leaves us with a final, really fascinating thought. If these stations are still broadcasting their unbreakable codes today, and shortwave signals can reach anywhere on the globe without leaving a single digital footprint, who is the intended recipient? When that robotic voice starts reading off a string of numbers tonight, who might be sitting in a quiet room listening to those stations right now in your own city? It's a profound reminder that sometimes the deepest secrets aren't hidden in secure digital vaults at all. They are broadcast loud and clear, just waiting for the one person with the key to understand them. Thank you so much for joining me as we explored the incredible espionage tool that is the number station. Keep your ears open.